Hey everyone, welcome to the 349th episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. This episode is brought to you yet again by patron Ben Steer. He's getting a lot of props from us because my mailing of his hat is a little bit delayed, but it's going out today. I promise you, Ben, if it doesn't, I'm going to give you 2 hats. I'm Oren Kaplan.
Regretfully yours. I'm Matt Enlow. Today we're talking about micro and macro regrets, the big ones and the little ones across our career. I think Oren and I are both feeling a little introspective as this year winds down. Things have sort of opened up and then they feel a little weird again all of a sudden. It's an easy time to just kind of think about yourself, think about all of the smart moves you made and all of the ones that maybe you would want to do differently. So we're going to dig in. Oren had a big shoot. I'm on my way into some fun stuff. And so we're thinking about what we like to do differently. You wake up the morning after a shoot you've been prepping really hard for weeks. And you think to yourself, dang, why didn't I get that insert? So Oren, before we talk about the regrets, how'd the shoot go?
The shoot was awesome. I think I can say now because I saw actually like someone from the production company posted a picture of me and the star, which was Rebel Wilson. So I feel like I can say it was Rebel Wilson. And if you don't know, if you're not familiar with her name, she's one of the characters from the Pitch Perfect series.
She also was in Bridesmaids. Yeah, she's one of the obnoxious roommates in Bridesmaids and is really funny in that movie.
Yeah, she often plays characters that are like mean and snarky and really funny. And I'd actually even like read interviews about her like behind the scenes that she like loves to improvise and ad lib and that she never says like the same line twice. And I was like a little bit nervous about that, but she was actually just like super easy to work with. You know, she had a bunch of ideas that were really funny, but also if I was like, hey, can we just do it the way it was scripted? She was like, sure, let's do it that way. Like there was no ego or attitude. And she like literally came with like her script, like the storyboards printed out and like her notes on them. Like funny things, like sometimes, you know, and we talked about this on the podcast before. My wife was in a short film with Chris Parnell once, and I don't think he was even getting paid for it. It was just like a funny short. And she said he showed up early. He was off book. Sometimes these actors that you expect to work less hard because they frankly don't have to work hard to get the roles and things as much as like newer actors. They're like more prepared. Like there's a reason you see that they have like this work ethic. They care about the quality of things. Like with Rebel, we would do a take and be like, I think we got it. Let's move on. And she's like, can I just do one more? I want to try something else. You know, like, yeah. They're just invested in the final product, you know,
and being good. Yeah.
And look, if you're not, you know, famous, if you don't have like a long track record or an amazing resume as an actor, I'm sure, you know, like our wives who've done a lot of stuff, you've seen them before. They've been on HBO shows and whatever. They probably on a TV show wouldn't feel super comfortable saying like, hey, could I get one more take?
And it kind of wouldn't be appropriate unless it was like a scene that was really about them and they had like built a rapport with the entire team. Right. And but it would be. Yeah.
It would be, it would be slowing down the production when everyone else in the production already thinks that they have what they need. Right.
Yeah.
But if you do ask for another take, that does mean that you care about
sure.
And you know, in the commercial world, sometimes you know the actors don't really care, you know, about the final product. They're just there for the payday. So anyway, it was awesome.
And also it's worth just kind of clarifying to people that this spot is very meticulously planned because there are a lot of VFX, there are a lot of stunts, there's all sorts of stuff that really kind of has to fit together like a Swiss watch. And so, you know, improv is awesome. And I'm sure there were plenty of really, really funny ideas that you maybe just didn't have room for because you needed to fit the exact amount of time that it takes to say your line in between point A and point B, where, you know, one gag ends and another one begins or whatever. So,
yeah. And I'm sure this has happened to you before. You know, when you work with film actors or even TV actors on commercials, sometimes they don't realize that like, hey, this shot needs to be 5 seconds long. So the reason we wrote,
it has to be.
The reason we wrote like, come check it today instead of come check it out today is because come check it out today was too long. And I've worked with some very funny people that have been in many commercials, but some of them they're really funny, but they just do really long takes. They love to go off script and ad lib and just add all these things. And you're like, this is gold. Thank you. We're not going to use any of it, you know?
Yeah.
But I felt like Rebel was very aware of the time constraints, not the shooting time constraints, the screen time constraints. So she was actually like giving us everything really fast. She was like, if I was like, hey, can you start doing this action? There's a part where she like picks up a flamethrower. I'm like, can you start picking up the flamethrower as you're saying the last line just to compress that a bit? And she's like, oh, totally. Yes. That does make sense. And was very aware of like, you know, I mean, a lot of great actors are good at the rhythm of the scene, but it felt to me like she came knowing that these shots had a certain amount of time of like screen time that they should be, and was trying to give them to us quickly, but still, you know, naturally.
And I think some of that maybe comes from, I can't speak to the specificities of Rebel or not, but like, I think when you work with movie stars and people who have worked a lot, they have the experience and perspective of having a say on the edit, being in test screenings and seeing how they get to see the results of all the things that they're executing on set and have a say in how that plays out. Right. And so I think the more movies you star in, the better you are at understanding what the reverberations of what you do on set, basically, and the ramifications. Right.
Right. And a lot of
that's why you look at like Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise could do every job on a set. Right. But he just knows that he's busy being Tom Cruise.
Yeah. And he is like kind of directing a lot of the action. You know, he's pretty much like the stunt coordinator on a lot of his movies, not to take away the credit from the actual stunt coordinators.
Sure.
But I've seen behind the scenes footage of him like coordinating where his helicopter goes versus where someone else's helicopter goes. And, you know, with the director and the coordinator and all the safety people. But he's a big part of that. And I'm sure for like potentially 100% of these actors, the reason they get so involved in the edit and the final product is because they've been burned before, you know, they've been in things that like, or they just feel like they're not portrayed well.
And you might even say they regret certain decisions that were made on set.
So the shoot went awesome. You know, we were kind of on every shoot. I mean, I've been on some of my worst stuff I've ever shot. At the end of the day, everyone's like going for drinks and excited and thinks we did an awesome job. And then you get into that and you're like, I should have done this thing or that thing. But so we were on such a high last night, went out to dinner, sushi, everything fun. Woke up this morning, just started thinking about the shots. And I was very prepared to, like, I went into the day yesterday. I actually had like a minor panic attack in the morning because I was like, we just have too many things to shoot. We just don't have enough time. And like, I edited our rehearsal together and I felt like it was running a little bit long. And I was and
again, because it fits together so precisely, you can't cut things the way you could just cut a joke. If it was two people in a room riffing or whatever,
right? You get your master, you get some coverage.
You'll be fine. But like,
here it's Rebel Wilson walking around and talking to the camera.
Intricate gags that are hard to reset and take the amount of time that they take are occurring.
Yep, you know, one at a time. And so I was just so scared. I just like on my way to set, I texted like the creative team and I was like, guys, good news, bad news, good news. And if you listen to our last episode, this will make sense. I took our like kind of 16:9 edit and cropped it to 9:16. And I think it totally works. Like, I think you guys can feel good that there is like an edit there because that was something they were concerned about. But the bad news is I just feel like we have too much stuff, you know? So I had all these ideas, like, what if we cut this? What if we combine here? What if we do this? What if we take this out? What if we cut these words?
It was this informed by an animatic or just a gut feeling?
I edited our rehearsal footage together, which is, the rehearsal is pretty much a stand-in doing all the dialogue very fast and giving nothing any time to breathe. And it was 60 seconds on the dot. And I was like, and that's the goal. But also they want to do a 30-second edit and a 15-second edit, which is going to be very difficult.
Are there scripts for the 30 and 15?
There are, but they're basically just like lifts from the 60. But I don't know. That's the next thing. I think we'll find something for that. And I even shot a separate thing that I think could work for the 15 that is just very different from everything else. Just in one setup, I just had her say the tagline and do something funny, you know? I pulled them aside, I didn't want the client to hear anything. I was like, guys, I'm just like a little worried. And I showed them my 60-second edit. And they're like, so what, like 65 seconds you think would be good? I'm like, yeah, 70, 65. I don't know.
Wait, is this not a broadcast spot?
Well, there's a hope that it's a broadcast spot.
Right. So you have a long form, but you still want to hit a hard 60 in success so that it can go elsewhere and all that. Yeah. So then the 60 is the deliverable. There's no flexibility.
That's the hero.
Basically.
Yeah. Is the 60. Yeah. They're like, let's just do it all. Just keep it in. They were made me feel okay about like if it's not super precise. They're like, let's just do it. And I'm like, I don't know, Rebel's probably gonna like just do a bunch of funny things in the middle. It's just gonna slow it down. And the first take she took was like faster than the stand-in, and I was like,
yeah,
okay, this is gonna work.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, every single scene was like, okay, we can cut this, we can make this, because we got to make our day. The sunset. We lost her at 3 p.m. to an interview with like some TV show. So we had to, and the light. We basically we had to shoot everything between like 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. with all these kind of complicated setups. So I just, my entire plan was just backup plan. And so when it's 2:30 p.m. and we got all our shots, I was like totally unprepared. I was unprepared for being ahead of schedule.
Yeah, because typically you have a few bonus shots in mind, like the thing you'd be like, well, it'd be really permitting. Nice.
Yeah. We'll do an insert. We'll do a close up. We'll do this. We'll do that. But I shot none of that. I did. I did 2 inserts, but one of them is boarded. Like it doesn't, the edit doesn't work without that insert. And I did basically 0 coverage. I overlapped the last scene in 2 shots, or in 3 shots, but I shot no close-ups, no overs. And to me, when someone is talking to camera, the coverage is really difficult because your main option is either an insert of something they're referring to or mentioning or touching. You can like, cut to, they pick something up off the table. You can cut to a close-up of that. But because we had like wall-to-wall dialogue, it just means you're cutting away from someone talking to show a hand picking something up. And could be a little distracting to what they're saying. Unless they're saying like, I love pistachios, and they're picking up a
cut to pistachios. Yeah. But for the most part, that's not happening.
Yeah. For the most part, coverage on a 2-camera shoot, TO camera, like someone talking to the camera, is a close-up of what they're saying in a wide, like 2 sizes.
Yeah. Right. Punch-ins, basically. Yeah.
But since she's moving the entire time, it's like kind of hard to even like cut, like use them to jump time and remove lines, because the background and everything is going to be totally different if you are using those punch-ins to cut around.
Well, so did you make the punch-ins like have softer backgrounds? Or
we did not shoot any punch.
You didn't.
We did not shoot any coverage. So this is why this episode is about regrets.
It's kind of like when you're a kid and you have like a VHS camera and you just have to shoot in sequence.
Yeah. Right. Yes. You're shooting.
It's just like every single shot is just like you're shooting in, you're cutting
and
in
you're like
camera,
rewinding
basically.
if you have a bad take. So the equivalent, today's equivalent, I don't know if you've ever used TikTok to shoot and edit, but that's kind of how it works. You shoot something with TikTok and you review it. If you like it, you go shoot the next shot. If you like it, you can kind of keep redoing it, and you can trim your shots and kind of transition. But you shoot in TikTok. If you use the TikTok app to shoot stuff, which it's actually an amazing tool. It can be like an endorsement. When you're on set and you want to show someone a sequence of cuts, you can edit in TikTok, the app.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I didn't have any plans for close-ups or coverage or insert because I knew we were going to be behind all day. And so there's a scene where she touches this guy with a jetpack and he like flies up, and we kind of shot it. We thought on the rehearsal, the funniest way it plays is like in this medium shot. There were a lot of things we were kind of trying to avoid seeing. And just like in a medium shot, and he just kind of like
you're trying to avoid seeing them because it's more VFX. It's like paint outs on things. Is that what you're trying to avoid? Or
parts of the stunt were like not as impressive as I wanted them to be. And so I thought it was funnier if like this guy just kind of leaves frame than if we see him like he's supposed to be blasting out of frame and he's kind of moving slowly. So just for the sake of comedy, we thought it was funnier staying on Rebel while this guy's feet fly up.
Yeah, that is funnier.
But we didn't, because we were like a little ahead. We did like 7 takes of it, and I'm like, why did I not do take 6 and 7 just way wider? Like full frame. I could have always. We shot like 4K. I could have punched in. So that's my first big regret.
That's a lesson I learned at College Humor. I realized I would rather have 2 takes of a new setup than 6 takes of one setup.
Yeah,
almost
Jordan
always.
Brainy always says that too. It's like for the take 5 and 6, just change the size a little bit.
Yeah. So you were shooting anamorphic, so you weren't on zooms. I assume they were primes.
Yeah, but we're on Steadicam, so I could have easily had the Steadicam operator just take 5 steps back.
God, yeah.
But we know that we're only going to use one of these for the edit. Kind of know.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a regret. I should have done it. I should have just, and I have a super wide shot. I don't know if I showed you what it looks like, but a really wide shot where we did do the jetpack thing in it, but like they're like ants in the frame. I mean, they're tiny. So it's like, it would be hard to cut to it because it's like such a shift in size.
Yeah.
It's like going from like a medium shot of someone to someone being like 10 pixels tall.
I will say, a gag like a jetpack or a car crash or something really big, I think actually you do have the latitude to cut extra wide, and you can play that for comedy.
Yeah.
Just to put your mind at ease.
But so that's my one big regret. And actually my shoot I had 2 weeks ago, I had the same regret. Like there it was a little harder because we did some gymnastics and I wanted a really wide shot of the entire trick. And they were kind of going out of the top of the frame. And like, some people thought that was cool and interesting. But in the edit, I'm like, I should have gone the super wide shot. But the super wide shot, we would have seen our lights. We would have seen, like, there were a lot of issues. Here we probably
you could have
done that. Or even just like tilt up with the camera. But, this is probably one of my bigger shoots, crew and cast wise and client and agency. I mean, probably like 20 people, just client and agency, everyone is dialed in, the boards, everyone is like literally, and we talked about this, I think off the mic, how the storyboards and like what the art department did, or like exactly like people were taking so many cues off the storyboards, where I think you and I, or at least I usually think of them as like more like a suggestion,
Well, it makes me think of, I think that you and I are kind of maybe butting up against a similar growing pain, in that when we started out, you didn't have storyboards. You had a shot list, but who cares?
Yeah. I mean, I was the camera operator like 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah, exactly. So you could just kind of not wing it, but you were figuring things out, and you had the nimbleness, the agility to fix things as you go. And you're thinking about the edit, and, when it was like my web series, I wrote it so I could rewrite on the fly. And, the more that you move into commercials, the more stakeholders there are and the more pre-planning there has to be, because it's not a handful of your best friends in a bedroom making jokes. It's a 60-person crew and a bunch of people watching on monitor, etc. And so you really, really plan, right? And we've talked a lot about how to dial in that plan so you feel like it's bulletproof. I can't speak for you. I personally have found that I have become a touch too rigid as a result. I'm shooting the boards and I'm trusting that the animatic works. And for the most part, 99% of the time,
and the boards are approved. That's why you don't want to waste time doing something that people might hate.
Right. And look, it's different if it's like...
And it's always a battle of time, right? That's why you're not experimenting too much.
And I did a lot of like this past year, kind of back to my roots, like improv pieces, where like the best piece was a thing that I came up in the moment. I don't even know that people realized that it was something that I was just doing. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was like truly spontaneous and it was so fun and makes the spot, But so I think that like bringing some of those instincts back into it and not being so worried about all of the different approvals is helpful. I always give the spiel of like, I'm going to get it exactly as planned. And then if we have a little bit of time, we're going to riff a little more. Mm-hmm. I always say that it's like, it's on autopilot at this point. And like, kind of need to practice what I preach when it comes to that stuff. Because certainly I ran into those problems where, you know, I mean, you helped me on some of these shots where it's like, the VFX would have been better if I had shot a slightly different version than what was boarded.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to me, the boards, it's like we're not drawing them. We're working with storyboard artists. So
yeah,
the boards are like what we are describing in words to an artist and then kind of giving notes on. But, you know.
Do you ever draw thumbnails for them?
Yeah. But I find that, you know, if
they're
you're
better artists than we are.
If you're specific about an angle or a perspective, I'm like not so good at, my thumbnails are great for size. This is how big the character should be versus the action versus the location. But I want it to be like a wide angle, really close up, like kind of a distorted shot, or I want to be like super long lens, you know, like those I'm not good at drawing really.
Do you ever do top downs? Because that, I think, depending on the artist in particular.
For storyboard artists, rarely. And I find that a lot of them aren't actually that like knowledgeable about lenses and things. Some are, some aren't. But I do 3D. That's why I started making Blender renders because I wanted to know. And the other problem with storyboard artists is they'll draw impossible to shoot things.
Sure.
Often.
The physics are not,
they're
not encumbered by physics.
Yeah. Because you'll be like, I want to be a little closer on that actor. So they'll just make that actor bigger, but the background hasn't changed, you know?
Sure.
Right. So anyhow, but I forget my train of thought. Just that there's so many crew members that are going off the storyboards on set that even saying like, hey, I want to go wider and like changing the lens, like talking to the DP and getting this shot that no one in this entire thing knows about. It's not like a 2-minute thing, you know, on a big set with like 10 background running.
Like, hey, take a big 10 steps back. And then before you've even committed to the idea of shooting it, you could literally just say, hey, Steadicam operator, do me a favor, take 10 steps back. And then all of a sudden, people are talking into their radios and
right. Oh, now we see this, now we see that.
Yeah, people are moving stuff around and you're like, hold on. I don't know how long it's going to take you all to get it to the way that you think it needs to be. I just literally wanted to look at it for a second, guys. You know? And that is...
Yeah, there's a domino effect.
Such a privilege. Like to complain about that in any capacity is insane. But I guess what there is like a difference between, it's the big difference between small things and mega things.
Yeah.
You know?
And this was also like a SAG shoot. So if I would have had, and now I think maybe one of the reasons I like was a little hesitant is if I would have had him take like 10 steps back, we would have now seen the stunt rig guys that were operating.
Who were not paid to be on camera.
Right,
and then all of a sudden you just spent
$2,000 to get this wide shot. Yeah.
Ahead. Yeah. Whether you use it or not.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So, but that was the one moment where I was like, I could have easily done that. Every other moment, it would have been like, okay, let's, you know, do an insert here. Let's light this. Let's change the lens. Let's do that. And every other moment seemed like it would have been hard to do, but that one moment that would have been easy is what I regret. And then my two other regrets is I had this actor with like a jetpack on that flies up. He didn't say anything, and I wish I would have just gotten like some audio from him, like, whoa, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like,
because you mean because you want it in the space, basically.
Well, because it's a SAG shoot, so if we need to, it needs to be a SAG actor doing that, and if we even get it from the stunt person making that sound, we have to pay him. Like it's just, it would have been so easy to just be like, hey, can we just record like a few efforts before you take off?
Yeah.
So it's just like an easy thing, and I can ask for more money to get that, but it's like it was an easy thing to do. And then the other thing, which also we could get, but would probably cost more money, is I never had Rebel just do the entire script audio, clean audio.
Yeah.
Which is so easy, especially while we're waiting for like a jib arm. We're literally just standing there for like 10 minutes. We had a technical issue with like our head, and we could have just recorded audio like for 10 minutes for free.
That is,
and we've talked about that before, like always do that.
Always do it. But yeah, I was going to say the pointer I have on that front is any wish list things, that being really high up there.
Tell the AD.
Tell the AD. Tell your scripty. Scripty.
Yeah.
Because the scripty, I have a love-hate relationship with it. Mostly love, but like their job is to nag you, and you'll be like, I'm in the middle. Hold on, just give me 2 seconds. And they'll be like, this is a good time to do the thing that you said you wanted me to do. And I say, I love you. I'm sorry. Give me 2 seconds,
Yeah. Yeah.
So shout out to Scripties.
I actually didn't even check in with Scripty at the end because we were basically we lost Rebel to her next thing. Yeah. We actually, I think, even delivered her a few minutes late. So it wasn't no matter what she would have told us, but there was this moment. I don't know. It was kind of this unexpected. We had just a technical issue with a remote head that wasn't working. And it was they're working on it for 10 minutes or something. And it's interesting because the entire rest of the day, dude, we had multiple generators on the set just so that they could have lights ready to plug in anywhere we wanted without knowing,
Yeah. Distro. Yeah.
And there was one point where I was did we get the
Sounds
fly
good.
swatter, the Condor, this giant thing over here? And they're like, it'll take us 20 minutes to drive it there. Do you want to do it? And I was like, no. And that was the only thing all day that was hey, this will take us a long time. Everything else was just 18K,
Ready.
10K, 6K, 24K, sky panel, anything we wanted. They're already set up and ready to go.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are my 3 big regrets. No audio of the entire script from the main person saying it. No audio from any other actors. Again, SAG shoot is the only reason that matters. And then not getting any coverage. And I just wanted to talk for 10 seconds, maybe a minute, about the coverage thing, which is I grew up, shooting all my own comedy sketches, I think many people do. And I would shoot a 2-shot or master, and I'd shoot overs and I'd shoot close-ups and I'd do all that stuff and find things in the edit. And what we all know, and for years that, I do a lot of comedy. And so that's how I shoot a lot of stuff. But all of my favorite commercials and all of my favorite directors, especially recently, I've noticed are not built of coverage. It's not a wide shot, close up, or over. It's there.
And even if it is sort of that, they're all specials. Basically, every single angle is built to
be unique and
deliver
good.
The exact idea that the line that it's shooting is meant to convey. Right?
Yeah. And I think probably we both do similar stuff, but I think you are more comedy dialogue person, which I think is more where that stuff works really well. It's a lot about the dialogue, and I think I'm more a comedy VFX person. And so for me, doing an action comedy, you would also kill an action comedy. You've done it a ton, but to me, I think first about camera movement and things like that, and less about the jokes maybe, and how they work together. But
sure.
I've been, my last 2 shoots really I've really been hey, this is the shot, this is the cool, and we're gonna get this shot perfectly, and we're not gonna do 10 different versions of this, because I've done that so many times, and in the edit you use one of them and you realize you just wasted so much time getting 3 other angles on this thing that you never touch.
Right.
So it was very intentional for me to not shoot a lot of coverage and to make each shot flow into the next shot. But but yeah, there are costs to that, which is you're reducing a lot of flexibility in post-production.
So the other thing I'm going to call out, not to give you more anxiety, but the other thing that I really have learned to insist on is that I want to know all of the run times for all of our deliverables always. And if the hero is a 60, I'm going to cut a 30, and maybe it is a pure lift, but I would bet that in something as intricate as what you're shooting, it would be handy to know if you're cutting a gag entirely, which I bet you are. You need to just know all of that stuff. And so, maybe none of the spot needs to change in order for it to work as a 30. But I would bet that there are at least a few lines that, if they were designed to bridge from one gag to leapfrog over the gag that's in the long form into the next thing or something like that, you could tighten it up, you could make it a little bit better. And that I always try to shoot for the 60, 30, and 15s and not treat them like lifts if I can help it. Unless magically...
No, and
if it's master and then cross coverage, then yeah, you could probably, the 30's fine.
I think that's smart, but I also think, and this is some advice I got from a producer that I do believe I mentioned on the podcast before, the producer that had me redo my website. He told me that I am an incredibly unselfish director, and that a lot of the directors that he works with that end up doing really well are very selfish.
And just don't worry about the 30 and the 15.
It's not
the problem.
I'm worried about them. I want them to be good, obviously, especially if they're the ones that get the most airtime. But like, I want the hero to be awesome. I want the client and the agency to be like, well, our plans were for 30, but the hero is freaking amazing. It's like an award-winning spot, and we're going to fight to run it. And on this job, I really felt like from the client to the agency to the production company, everyone was fighting for like the integrity of this shoot. They wanted something awesome at the end of the day. And so I felt I'm really just going to focus on the 16. I'll give you a great example of like where what you're saying from this specific shoot would be a little difficult, which is we have like a few whip pans, whip from one scene into the next scene. I actually just have one of those, but it's kind of hard to not use both sides of that whip pan. You can edit out before the whip pan and totally cut the next scene out. But we have this section where she shoots off a flamethrower, and I have a kind of like, the flame transition more or less to her with a bunch of soot on her clothes and somebody like wiping the soot off as she walks. Now, if we cut the whole flamethrower sequence, which is like highly likely for the 30, now she has soot on her for no reason, off the previous shot where she's just like hanging on a helicopter or something. So
the
I can tell you what we did.
Would be you shoot it twice, right? You shoot it clean and then with soot, right?
So we basically just shot it without soot. But we shot someone just finishing cleaning her up. And then I think there is a world where you just buy that she's like, someone is like, messing with her clothes because she's on set. But it makes it very slightly less cool. Of course, me being a VFX person, I thought like we could add some set to her if we needed pretty easily.
You got that Mocha Pro.
Yeah.
I
have the Pro one, right? The one that does.
That's what I said. Mocha Pro.
I know you said
face mesh.
Yeah. Power mesh.
Power mesh, pardon me.
Yeah. No, it's, if you guys don't know what the hell we're talking about, which hopefully you don't, Mocha Pro Power Mesh, pretty amazing.
Basically, it's a facial tracker, so you can put a tattoo on someone's face or some soot
or fabric. Like, and it doesn't have to be a plane. It can can have multiple angles on a surface. Anyhow, but then when it really didn't make sense, like we had her like she crashes a golf cart into some boxes, and on the next shot, we start with like some boxes kind of flying. Like probably would have been smart to do a take without the boxes flying, but like. I don't know. It just felt like a good segue, and I want to use the best performance take and the best time take and not have to use a take because it has boxes or no boxes. And
sure. Yeah.
I was really
and also you only had so much time.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
I was like, no alts, guys. I'll give you 2 alts. You get 2 versions in this line, 2 versions in this line. And the one scene in the end where I have a tiny bit of coverage, I have like 3 angles on it. I was like, okay, here we can do,
right.
In the close-up, I'll give you whatever lines you want. But everything else, like, you guys signed off on this. We love it. We don't want to do 15 versions. We just literally don't have the time. So, I don't know. It's a thing. I mean, I guess.
I like it.
Yeah. It's being selfish and taking risks and being bold. I don't mean those as like, I'm so cool doing that. It's like, it's risky. It's not covering your ass, right? Like what coverage is supposed to be about. But the directors I look at that I'm a fan of, seem to shoot things like this. And I kind of feel like when I first started out, I also was like, very inspired by like Tarantino and like people like that. And I would just do those Tarantino-esque shots. I wasn't, worried about like four versions of everything.
Right.
And some of my earlier stuff, I think is it's bad. It's bad for a number of different reasons.
Sure. But there are the things you like about it were from that mentality. Yeah. I love that. I know we kind of talked for like 40 minutes now, but I was wondering from a bigger career place, like, are there things you regret, not just like on a shoot specifically, but like bigger things you didn't realize earlier or do earlier or weren't selfish earlier? Like I kind of wish I had this
attitude,
this mentality earlier.
5 years ago, and maybe I'd have more duds, but also more wins.
Yeah. We talked about this topic a little bit in preparation. I was thinking about it. And for the most part, I think that most of our decisions are motivated by the nature of the industry and our personal situations, right? So like it would have been easy to be like, maybe I should have shot a feature instead of a web series or whatever.
I feel like the web series really gave you a big in into the space that you wanted to be in.
Web series launched my career. Yeah. It was a smaller pond, but I made a bigger splash. If I'd made a South by Southwest movie that, premiered at midnight, like, would it be on the front page of Variety or whatever? Probably not. It's easy to kind of like second guess that stuff here or there.
Yeah, I kind of feel like if you would have made a feature, it could have launched a feature career, but it would not have supported your life, like in the way that a short form comedy career did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, would I rather be making features right now and then get hired to do commercials because I'm a cool feature director? Yeah, of course.
But that's a gamble. Like, how many people do we know that have that? Like, two,
Yeah, totally. And also, like, I don't think I could have made a feature for $16,000, which is what I made Squaresville season 1 for. But I do have a couple things specifically that I think I wish I had taken more seriously. One, I got rejected by an executive right after Squaresville, where they were like, you need to have more time behind the camera. That's why we're not hiring you on this show. And I was like, okay. And then I just logged tons of hours, just shot every sketch that I could and every commercial that I could. And here I am. And that executive still isn't going to hire me. And it's not because
Are they still an executive?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I stayed friendly and reached out to them. But the truth is that was just a nice way of saying, like, we're not going to hire you. We don't like you enough. I took that to heart so much that I stopped writing as regularly as I should be. Like, there was a period of time where I was making 50% of my income creating intellectual property, selling shows, making that happen. And none of them went. And I didn't keep writing more. And now that part of my business has dried up.
And we know that type of business, you write stuff, no one's willing to read it 1 year. Next year, people are willing to read it, but they're not into it. Next year, people are willing to meet on it, but they won't buy it.
It's a marathon.
Next year,
it's
people
a long
will
game.
pay to buy a pilot, but they won't make it. It's like, so you kind of got to like right before the part where people are buying it.
I sold a pilot. It just didn't. They just didn't make it. Yeah. Right.
So you just needed like 2 more years of the same.
Sure.
Right.
And I think also, who knows? Maybe not. Maybe not. Also, that show didn't go like in like 2018, 2019, I want to say. The takeaway, though, is that like if I had 6 other screenplays under my belt, at the very least, be a better writer. And the reason that I was able to sell those shows and all of that stuff is because I was self-generating and had some buzz.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot harder now to open those doors because that heat has worn off. And so I'm back to like, okay, like I have an awesome resume. I have like, if you look at the things that, if you list my little bio and you condense a decade of hard work, it's actually kind of impressive, which is great. Not quite enough to get a movie made right now. And so I got to get that buzz back going again. And if I'd had 6 razor sharp screenplays to pick from, I would be in a better place,
Yeah.
I have more plates spinning for sure.
I mean, what's interesting is having a podcast for 7 years is I feel like you were like selling those shows, like when we started this podcast. And
sure.
A lot of the title of this podcast comes from that you were like self-generating things, that I was like hustling and making things, and that was leading to more work. And we did kind of over the course of the life of our podcast, like kind of start getting just offered a lot more things and doing a lot less of our own things, and then being like, why would we work on our own things if someone is offering to pay us for something else? But the answer is what you just said, what I just said. Like, why am I 15 years into like directing, like moving to LA and directing, like now saying like, I just want to shoot the shots I want to shoot, instead of like being scared and safe. And
Yeah.
probably 7 years ago when I was doing that Quiznos stuff and we're talking about like, the Burning Man thing, I think around when we started the podcast, like that stuff I did shoot kind of the way I wanted to shoot it. I didn't shoot like scenes and coverage and all that stuff. And I wasn't really doing much commercial stuff at the time. And I wasn't really operating out from a place of fear.
Sure.
But it's taken me kind of, obviously we kind of go in like a sine wave form. But I do regret not reminding myself on every single job that people like happy people and they like passionate people. And if you're on a job where you are curmudgeon-y or don't care about it, not only will it probably not come out good, but it probably won't lead to something you do like that you do care about.
It may accidentally burn a bridge. That was. So I have two other things. One of which is like, give everything your all. Right. I think that there is a period of time which
is easier said than done for sure.
But like, I think you get to a point where, you've done some stuff and it's cool. And, you're feeling excited about the budgets that you've been getting. And then somebody from your past is like, hey, do you want to do this low budget thing?
Right.
And you're like, sure, I guess. And you don't do as good a job as you should have.
Yeah. Or you're kind of trying to do it on the side.
You're distracted or whatever. And that's kind of like an extreme version. I don't think either of us ever did that, like with that callous.
Right.
But everything's an opportunity. And if I'd made some stuff even more awesome, again, my life would be a little bit better, I think. And then the final thing is that I think in this last year in particular, I was distracted, busy with releasing a movie and raising a baby and all of that stuff. But I let some contacts cool off a little bit. And it's easy to forget that the job is about working with your friends and maintaining friendships and building new contacts, And so now I'm like, oh, okay, like it's kind of the end of the year and I could use a gig or two. It would be nice to get some stuff going. And like, I rekindled all of that stuff. But like, if I had kept the fires hot, I think that things would be different. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you can't forget that you kind of have to just be like always,
stay in touch.
Catching up with people, staying in touch. Yeah.
I have an endorsement actually that's related to this. So hopefully I'll remember to make the connection when I do the endorsement.
Stay in touch. Yeah. So with the few minutes we have left, Oren, what about you? What are your macro regrets?
I think you covered kind of a lot of the same of mine. This is a Roxy She special. She always says this to us. But this last job kind of really solidified. Actually, the last two jobs. I've always kind of been afraid to ask for what I want. I don't know. I know you grew up in Sacramento, but where I grew up in Orange County, like they would always do these fundraisers in elementary school where you'd go like door to door and like sell chocolate or like stationery or something to raise money for the school. Yeah. And I was like hands down the worst kid at that. There were always the kids whose like mom would take it to her office and have everyone in the office just, they in their class would win the pizza party or whatever for raising the most money. But I was just incapable of like asking a stranger if they would want to buy chocolate, because I was like, why would you pay like $3 for this bar of chocolate or something, like when I didn't want it. And so,
also you're like, do you know what the margins are on this? Like the school really, the take home is this is just criminal, frankly,
Yeah. But I would have been a horrible Girl Scout too. Like I just cannot. I grew up
a racket.
Yeah. Like just so afraid to ask people for things that I thought might be inconvenient or not. Like I was just afraid of rejection, I guess, maybe at a very young age. And
or you don't want to be rude or come off as needy or something. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. And so even as a director where your job is to ask for things, I'd be like, it'd be great to have a Steadicam or a crane. So maybe we'll just get the crane because, I think I could do this one Steadicam shot on the crane. Like where a lot of directors would be like, let's get a Steadicam and a crane, and they're like, well, it'll take too long to switch cameras. Like, okay, let's get two cameras. And like just even my job yesterday working with this DP, it's like we literally have a Fisher dolly with an RE35 camera with Panavision anamorphic lenses on it as a prop in the shot on dolly track. We never use the dolly for any shots other than being in the shot.
Yeah.
And we ended up not using that second camera body because we had a technical issue. And we just put it, a lens we weren't using on there. But like,
yeah, it's not like you're renting that stuff purely as props.
Yeah. And I shot my job 2 weeks ago. They're like, yeah, you're going to have a 3-person art team. And I was like, well, I want this and this and this. If you guys want to do the thing that we were all excited to do. And then it ended up being like a 12-person art team, and it's just because I asked for things. And, sometimes you're like, wow, look at this movie, or look at this show I like, or look at this short film my friend made. And like the production design was awesome. But you're like, but that production designer would never work with me. I mean, I've barely done anything. But like, guess what? You should just ask them. Like, hey, would you work on this? Like, and I'm just kind of learning. Like, it's okay to ask people. Even if it's a low budget thing, even if you have no money. Like, the worst thing they can say is no. And I guess I'm like a person that like is like afraid to get like I avoid people telling me no. So I kind of, even if I'm asking for something, I already come with a solution. Like, hey, can I? I'd love to have like this prop, but we could probably cut this other prop. I think we might not see it, And whereas I think, again, like it pays to be, you can think of it as selfish or something or greedy, but it just pays to be open with all the things you want. And sometimes people might surprise you and say yes.
And also producers are planning on things coming up. On you needing to spend a little bit more money in a couple different places. You know what I mean? Like they're aware of like ideas are coming,
Right. Yeah. And I'm not at all suggesting that you shouldn't be budget conscious, or if a producer calls you and says like, hey, we're way over budget, what can we cut? Like being creative in how you spend the money, for sure you should do that. But don't limit yourself before you try, is I guess what I'm saying. Cause that's kind of has been a little bit my attitude, and one of my, I guess, regrets over like my last 5 to 10 years is that I did not ask for like every single thing I wanted,
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's my macro regret. I mean, and basically everything you said, I kind of agree with as well. Well, cool. You want to do an endorsement?
Let's endorse, buddy.
Unpaid endorsements.
I worked on some campaign, Amazon Prime. If you've been to my website a couple years ago or something. Shot it with Yuki. Came out really good. I really like it. And I think a lot of what made it great was the post-production. I feel like the editing, the music, they ended up getting like kind of a famous person in the football commentator world to do the voiceover. And they went through like 3 or 4 different people. They went through like 2 different editors, and they really meticulously edited that spot basically all we shot was like, a few people in a living room watching TV, and then a guy on a green screen, like on a couch. But they took that one day shoot footage and turned it into a spot that feels big, it feels like an NFL worthy spot. And the writer on that is this guy named Billy Scafari. He's a podcast host too. Oh, it's called the No Joke Podcast. It's Billy Scafari and Adam Lustig. Anyway, he was the writer on this Amazon Prime thing. He's really into football and things like that. So he writes a lot of things, but he wrote these 2 promos, one for the AFC Championship with Tom Cruise and one for like a promo for a football game with John Malkovich, called Teasing John Malkovich. And if you want to try to find it on Vimeo, just type Tom Cruise AFC Championship. They basically got Tom Cruise, I'm sure, for like 3 hours, and they had him in a room, and they wrote a script that was like Tom Cruise to the T, and they recorded him on a big like projector screen, or it might have been a green screen. Doesn't look like green screen to me, but like a giant projector screen where they had like kind of different colored lights behind them. But like a relatively simple thing, that you could do like on a budget. And the editing, it's this 2-minute clip, and they intercut like Top Gun Maverick footage in there and all this NFL footage in there. And it's just like such an epic spot that is created by like one person just talking in a room by themselves to camera, and just incredibly good editing, music, sound design, post-production. Really good writing, really good post. And I sent it to like Blake, our friend that has like a post house / production company. And I was like, look at true like A-list level commercial editing and how it can take a simple shoot and make it feel like epic. And so I think if you're ever looking for a reference, like you have footage of someone talking to camera and you're like, how can we spice this up? Check out Tom Cruise AFC Championship. And then the one he did with John Malkovich, which I like even better, except it's shot with an orchestra and in a what do you call a place where an orchestra plays?
orchestra pit?
No,
in a concert hall.
Yeah, in a concert hall. It's the production value is definitely higher, but it's also just excellent, just really well written and really well edited. And I just, a lot of times we work on things. They're like, oh yeah, our person over here is going to edit. She's like a great editor. She was our assistant editor, and she's like, and when you see some stuff that's just edited so well, and what makes it good is the edit, and the music and the sound and the mix and the color, you realize like, man, like if I want to make like this amazing A-list stuff, like I should look at the details these people are paying attention to, and it's just really kind of inspirational. So Teasing John Malkovich and Tom Cruise AFC Championship, both written by Billy Scafuri. They're on Vimeo. Again, these are just like promos for football games. Nothing that's going to change your life. But I just think it's just such a great example of good writing and good editing that
you're all about it. I love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, I will definitely dive in and check those out. I can't wait. In the meantime, my unpaid endorsement is a company called Allied Vaughn. They're one of a handful of companies that do DVD and Blu-ray authorship for you on demand.
Oh, dude, why did we not talk about your movies out on Blu-ray and DVD?
And my movies out on Blu-ray and DVD. The film See You Next Christmas is available on Blu-ray and DVD that I produced. But what's cool about it is, Oren, you have a basement full of old DVDs.
I do.
And I do not. And the difference is that the technology has changed significantly, where you can give them all of the authorship files that you need. They set it all up and then, obviously take a cut, but like...
And do they set up like the Amazon store, like all those things?
They do all of the like barcodes and tracking numbers and all that stuff. So it's on Amazon, Walmart, Deep Discount, all the places you buy a DVD, Barnes & Noble.
And can you log in and like see the stats?
I don't know how reporting works exactly just yet.
Because that's the biggest problem with like distributors. It's like almost no transparency of that stuff. They'll give you a report every quarter, if you're lucky.
Yeah. Well, and I think that also is changing, because I think that used to fly before everyone had access to the analytics on their Instagram channel or their YouTube page or whatever. And like now, I think distributors will have a dashboard that allows you to like log in and check in on things. So if you have an indie, you can't just approach them out of the blue. You have to have like a rep or a deal or whatever. But I'm sure that there are other companies out there that are doing it as well. But like, I guess the on-demand printing of DVDs and Blu-rays, I think, is a pretty huge boon for indie filmmakers.
But are they at like Walmart or Target or any of that? Or is it more for online?
Online, yeah. Okay. Though pre-orders will kind of add that to the mix, but so there will be some in store, I believe, but we're not printing a ton in advance, basically. Yeah,
that's where my hundreds of DVDs.
Right. Yeah.
You had and never sold it.
Right. Exactly. So like we're avoiding that. Our upfront fees are very, very low, and it's been great. So.
Awesome.
BarnesandNoble.com, Walmart.com, Amazon.com, all the places. Deep discount DVD. When I saw it on there, I was like, oh man, that takes me back. Anyway, another great episode in the books. I regret nothing.
No regrets.
If you have any questions for us, if you want to learn more about the things that we talked about, you can tweet us.
Tell us what you regret.
Tell us what you regret. Hit us up on social media at Just Shoot It Pod. Less and less on Twitter, but Instagram we're around.
Guys, and, I'm still on Twitter.
Oren's still tweeting.
I'm not afraid of no Elon Musk.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, I'm not tweeting, but I still read tweets.
If you have a longer question for us, you can always email us at justshootitpod@gmail.com, and you can follow me across all social media, including currently Twitter at Mr. Maddenlow.
Mastodon. I'm at O'Kaplan on Instagram. I'm at Smitey Pyleg. I finally posted something on Instagram, some photos from set. This episode was edited by Noah Bayshore. Our producer is Tyler Smalls. And you're listening to music from the Free Music Archive and the artist Jazar. And we will catch you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.